Hello, guys, and welcome to the FSF Podcast.
Yes.
I'm Tim, I'm your host, and of course, this is the show that is made by nerds for nerds. Now, you'll notice I'm not in the fortress of nerditude today. I'm back at home because mainly I'm lazy, but don't worry, I'll be back in the fortress here soon enough. However, I do have an amazing guest here with me today. Our guest is a fantastic voice actor who you may have most recently recognized on X-Men 97 as Morph. Chef's kiss, by the way. But you've definitely heard them in Star Wars Visions and multiple roles there. He's Boss Baby in Boss Baby Back in Business, the Green Goblin and Spidey and his amazing friends. He's the Joker in the Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League video game. Honestly, there's a ton of other things in there. Just go check out his IMDb page. You are going to be amazed at all the things that our guest has been in. And I am so very, very pleased and excited to welcome JP to the show. And JP, I did not ask you how to pronounce your last name before we got started. I'm sorry.
I was wondering. I always get a little clenched up, and be like, "Uh oh, are we getting there?"
Yeah, I didn't.
Because I had somebody do like a full 3-minute introduction, and they get to the end and they're like, "JP Karliak," and it's like, it's Karliak, but thank you.
Okay, so I watch a lot of hockey, and there's always a lot of French and Canadian names and all these and Russian names and Eastern European names. And so I was looking at it and I was thinking Karliak, so I was not too far off.
No, not far off at all.
So it's Karliak?
Yep.
JP. Okay, so we're going to try that one last little bit over again. We can edit all this out so I don't look like an idiot.
All right. I think it's good.
All right, fine, whatever. I've been worse. I've been an idiot before on this show. Why not now? All right. So we'll just leave it in. Welcome to JP Karliak. There we go. All right.
Yeah, so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
With a last name like Bicycle, I should be asking more people how to pronounce their last name than just charging in, because my last name violates all spelling rules. So, but
I get it.
All right, so JP, as I mentioned, this is a show made by nerds for nerds, and as a nerd, we love a good origin story. And one of the things I love about the X-Men series is we've been able to see some of the origins of some of the castmates and how they've developed and their characters have developed. So in the story of JP Karliak, what is your origin story? How did you get here? What made you want to be a voice actor?
Well, so I grew up in Dunmore, Pennsylvania, which is just outside of Scranton. Yes, that one.
That one.
And I grew up in the 80s, loving cartoons. My first one was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. I was a huge fan. You might have noticed the little Skeletor that's right here.
I did, yes.
Yeah. He's my hero. I watched Batman the Animated Series, Looney Tunes. Sure. I was addicted to cartoons. I did not watch X-Men the Animated Series. I didn't watch that till later. And I think most of it had to do with that. By the time I came home from school, I would see the end credits of X-Men as I was turning on the Power Rangers, which was my thing. So
sure. Okay.
Anyway, so I loved all things animation. And about the time that I started to get in my head that there was this concept of one day I will need a job, I saw the movie Aladdin, and I saw Robin Williams do the genie, and I was like, I want to do that. So my young mind put together the idea, okay, well, voiceover can't be something that is a real job. It has to be something they let you do for fun as a gift. So maybe the equation here is, if I, like Robin Williams, go to Hollywood and become a famous on-camera actor, then they will let me do voiceover. So that kind of became my trajectory. And it wasn't until I was in college that I had a lovely professor who disabused me of that notion. Was like, or you could just take some classes and audition. It is a paying job.
There is that, yeah.
Yeah. So, I came out to LA, went to school here. I started auditioning for on-camera stuff, but then started taking class in voiceover. And over time, I just started spending more of my time, resources, extra cash in, trying to get into voiceover and less in on camera, until I finally just cut the cord completely. And then this is all I do. So, So, I've had an agent and have been professionally auditioning since 2006. but I think I've been a full-time working voice actor since maybe like 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I saw that you had some credits back in the mid, at least, okay, according to IMDb, but we know that IMDb is IMDb.
It's got a few doozies in there that are not true. So hit me.
Well, that's what I'm circling. That's what I'm circling back to. Yeah, and that's going to come up again later. But yeah, because I think it had you slated in for I can't remember the name of the anime, like in the mid 90s.
Oh yeah, so I was in like Neon Genesis Evangelion.
That's the one.
But they say, you know, like it was created in the 90s, but I did the dub for Netflix that was from 5 years ago, I think. So
okay. Yeah, so
it's kind of like if you're on a soap opera and they're like, you know, Days of Our Lives from 1959. You know, it's like no,
right show, wrong time period. Okay,
correct.
Yeah, not that IMDb is ever wrong, but that kind of actually leads me into my next question for you, because I was looking at things about you on IMDb, which we have joked about IMDb on this show before as the wiki of Hollywood.
It literally is.
Yeah, because it's not always accurate, right? I mean, I've actually had people on here, and I've relied so heavily on the IMDb biography and the other things going in there. And then they're like, yeah, I haven't done that in 20 years. Oh, awesome. That's fantastic. Okay, great. So I always kind of, you know, anytime I talk about anything IMDb now, I'm always a little punchy, a little hesitant, because I'm like, so I saw this on IMDb, and
but especially voiceover, they're terrible at keeping animation and video games, you know, up to date and correct. So yeah, it's a
So I'm hoping that this part is accurate, because if it is, I think it's fantastic. It's in your biography, and I'm hoping the biography was either written by you or someone who knows you.
I think it was me. Okay,
good. That helps, because I noticed at the end of your biography, there was the mention of your love for pie.
Yeah, I wrote that.
Okay. Mention of your love for pie, then your husband, then your dog, Stanley Pucci, and then pie again.
Yes, not a misprint.
Okay, so not a misprint. That is, in fact, accurate. Okay. So
I did have somebody be like, oh, by the way, there was a clerical error. I'm like, no, it's not.
No.
First and last and always pie.
So a couple things off of that. Number one, amazing dog name. Like, all-star level. Kudos. I got a good audible laugh out of that when I was reading through, and I got to Stanley Pucci. I'm like, that's phenomenal. Thank you. Chef's kiss. But yeah, that's fantastic. So I have to ask you two questions about this, because we're talking about pie, and pie is a serious topic.
Yeah.
What is your favorite pie, and how does Scott like being ranked just below that?
I think he understands. I think he loves me because I am the person I am. So that includes an obsession with pie. I will say I'm kind of an all dessert person, but I've never been a cake person. Like, we actually had pie at our wedding. We did not have cake.
Oh, really?
Like,
okay.
I actually, you know, they have like a wedding hashtag. I actually wanted our wedding hashtag to be F cake. Like, you know,
nice.
Not doing that. I would say my favorite, and it has to be done right, but it's just a classic cherry pie. I love cherry.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, but there's rarely a pie of. I will say always fruit pies over cream pies.
Okay.
I will eat cream pies. I enjoy them, but
sure,
I will always choose a fruit pie first.
Fair enough. I can get behind that.
Are you a banana cream person?
No, actually, I out of the cream pie varieties, I am more of well, it's actually not really a cream, is it? It's more of I like the meringues. That's not really
lemon meringue is so good.
Yeah, I'm a lemon meringue guy. I like that. But if I'm going to eat a cream pie, I'm probably going to go with coconut over the banana. And I'm not even a big coconut fan. Yeah.
But
my absolute favorite pie to this day is strawberry rhubarb.
That is a very close second for me. I love
Yeah.
strawberry rhubarb.
Because I like the juxtaposition of the sweet and the sour and how it hits all the notes and all the flavors, you know,
Mhm.
just which is why. So this is a side quest story. My ADHD brain is kicking in at the moment, so just bear with me. So my wife and I were out and about today, and she had to use the restroom, so we stopped at this little market downtown where we live, and it's very much a little homegrown market. They've got stuff from all these local vendors and all these different foods, and you know, and I had never noticed that they sold popcorn there before. And for the longest time, I would only eat popcorn if I was at the theater. I couldn't eat it at home. I just, for whatever reason, but lately I'm kind of like, you know, popcorn sounds good. We should get popcorn. Let's get more popcorn. And I noticed they have all these different flavors of popcorn. And I picked one up off the shelf because it said sweet dill pickle popcorn. And I'm like, this should not work because I hate sweet pickles. I only like dill pickles. And the lady at the counter said, well, if you want to try it, rip it open, pour a couple pieces in your hand. If you like it, buy it. If not, just leave it here and I'll put it out as for samples for everybody else to try. I was like, well, that's a can't go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, that bag's almost gone.
I've had pickle flavored popcorn. It is, it goes very quickly.
I was not, because this one has a little bit of a sweet on it. When you first bite into it, you get the sweet, and then you get the pickle at the end, so you get that sweet and sour combination, which is why I like strawberry rhubarb pie, because I get that sweet and that sour, and yeah. So anyway,
it's like it's the same way. Like I love a blueberry pie, but my favorite blueberry pie is blueberry ginger lime.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, I made it. I made it at somebody at. We were at a wedding.
Okay.
Staying at an Airbnb, and we were all just hanging out, and everybody had picked fresh blueberries. I'm like, I'm gonna make a pie, and I made this, and killer. Or an apple pie is not good unless it has a healthy amount of lemon in it. Like it's.
Ooh, now that would be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, most apple pie recipes do have a squeeze of lemon.
A little bit, yeah.
But like,
yeah. But I think it would be very good with a little bit more in it. Now you have my brain thinking and things I need to ask my wife about later, because I should not be allowed to bake at any time ever. I can cook, I can do a lot of different things, but if you want something to turn out horribly, just ask me to bake something. Great. I will ruin it 17 ways from Saturday. That's just going to happen. But okay, back to some nerdy topics, because this is supposed to be a nerd show, not a cooking show. But we had to talk about pie because pie. I too am a fan, and yeah, mostly of all desserts, but if I get a chance to talk about food on this show, we're going to talk about food. It's just the way it works. All right. So I wanted to get you on this show because A, your resume is awesome. B, and when I say I adored X-Men 97, I mean, that was like the continuation of X-Men. It is the continuation of the original series. It's like it picks up right where the other one left off. I felt like I never missed a day between the end of the old series and the beginning of the new, and it was beautiful and gut-wrenching all at the same time. I openly wept at a couple of the episodes. You guys really just absolutely nailed that show. So again, thank you for all the good work you guys did on that show. But I want to talk to you about something in particular that I think is one that flew by a lot of people, and I don't think that they got it. But it is the best joke about sex without using the word sex ever.
Let me guess. Wow, they're really working out their stamina, aren't they? Yeah.
I replayed that scene probably about 3 or 4 different times because I was laughing so hard. I was like, that's fantastic. And the fact that Morph is just standing there hitting the button and looking at Gambit the whole time.
He's so rude. He's so rude.
Oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. Oh, that whole scene with the schedule for the Danger Room was just Yeah, me and my friends talked about that pretty extensively for a little while, and then so my co-hosts who aren't able to be here today, we talked about it as a group, and just yeah, that was one of the things. You're like when we were talking about Morph, and because I love Morph's sarcasm. That's one of the reasons I love that character.
Mm-hmm.
When that came up, I was like, yeah, we got to get JP on the show. This is going to happen. We got to do that. We got to figure out a way to make that work because I got to talk to him about this. So I guess I brought up all that so I could ask you this. Was that written into the show, or was that something that just kind of happened as it came about? And I know with animation, it's not as easy to do the improv thing sometimes, because then you're talking about changing the animation and the storyboards. But sometimes that does happen. There's the things that happen in the voice room, kind of carry on into the show. So how did that come about?
I mean, it's the script. You know, this show was so tightly written. There was I'm not going to say that I didn't improvise anything. But most of my improvisations were like sounds or laughs or noises, just the little extra things to make a joke work. But as far as the words go, is all on the page, Yeah, I mean every little barb that Morph has, from that scene to the one in the club where he turns into Jean to razz Wolverine, or what's the line that I love so much? When they're going to find Trask, and they go to, and he has to get the Diet Coke to the Diet Soda to make the thing move, and he's like, "Well done, bad guy. Well done." It's all in the script, and what I love about it is I didn't need to improvise, because it's like Morph and I are very similar. I mean, as I'm sure you've noticed, this is Morph's voice. I'm not putting anything on or doing anything extra, and I think a lot of it just has to do with that. We have a similar sense of humor. We both, like, anything he would say, I was like, yep, that's the correct response.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about that, because I did notice that the voice is very similar. I didn't notice really any differences in inflection and tone between the way that you're talking to me now and what I remember of Morph from the series. So, I mean, I kind of picked up on that a little bit, but I was going to ask you, how similar you were with the character. But I think that's always helpful when I talk to. It's one of the things I love about when I talk to different voice actors. When they can tell me that, oh yeah, I identified with this character because, well, it's me, just in animation style.
Yeah, I mean, and on multiple levels. I mean, when I did watch the original animated series to get acquainted with Morph after I got the gig, I was really, I mean, first of all, what a tragic character. I mean, he's in that first episode just cracking jokes, just trying to be an innocent, nice guy. Then he gets killed. Then he gets traumatized. Then he gets, just so much. Then he goes to rehab, kind of, sort of,
right?
What a mess. And then he comes back in this show and has rejoined the team and is just trying to fit in and kind of regain some semblance of normalcy, if there is anything close to normal in the X-Men world. Right. And you really get a sense from the page, and I think we all conveyed that fairly well, that this is somebody who, yeah, he's the wisecracker, but it's a lot of using humor to push through trauma, which I think is such a universally identifiable trope. I think it's a very specifically queer trope of using humor to push through trauma. And I just read that and I was like, okay, I don't need to slap on additional layers of stuff to make this character. I had a little more freedom when it came to the voice, because Morph wasn't in a ton of the original, so they weren't so precious about a sound alike. So I got to just kind of go with what I felt was right. And I'm like, let's just ground it in just being my voice, let the humor come through, let all of that just work by itself. And then just do the laugh, because the laugh was the thing that most people remembered. So I had to do that.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Very cool. So on another topic with voice actors now, I asked this question of another voice actor. So I'm curious how you'd respond. In one of our conversations with Mick Wingert, who plays Tony Stark for Marvel's What If and some of the other MCU offerings.
Love Mick. He's awesome.
Yeah, Mick is fantastic. We've had him on a couple different times, and yeah, he's had me in tears telling me a couple different stories. But he also plays the Joker for the show Batwheels.
Yep.
And I asked him, how does he go from playing the hero to playing a maniacal villain in a children's show, which you also do with the Green Goblin and Spidey and his amazing friends.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your approach? How do you go from, because I know it's acting, I know it's a role, but you have to, what kind of mindset do you have to get yourself in to play a villain?
I mean, I do feel that playing the hero is sticking to your own moral fabric. Like,
okay.
The best, you're basically playing into the best side of you. And then the villain is permission to just give in to your worst impulses.
Fair.
And that can mean a whole bunch of things. Like, it can be your homicidal psychopathic tendencies, or it can be as simple as, like, when I played the Joker, it can be as simple as just being a little too loud, a little too much, a little bit annoying, a little bit extra, like the things that in polite society people expect you not to be, that you're just like, screw it, yes, And I think, so when I auditioned for Gabi, it was such a unique audition in that, most of the time, this is my booth back here.
Okay.
I just record from here. I send off an audition. I might hear something in a month or never, whatever, like you just kind of do that. And it's self-directed. I don't interact with people when I'm doing it. But for Spidey, they brought us in and we did our first, usually like a callback you'll do with the director, but this was first audition. The director went to different agencies and like met with us and coached us through the role. And so I came in with Gabi, and I knew it was for a preschool, like a little kids series, but right. I was still, I love a villain. I just eat a villain up. And I was still leaning into a little too much. I don't think I was specifically going Willem Dafoe, but I think I was leaning into a little too much, goblin, like demon.
Sure. Yeah.
And she just kept saying, she was like, he's not evil. He's naughty. He's not bad. He's just mischievous. Like, he's just a little brat. He's a little bully.
Okay.
And so eventually playing into that is sort of where I got to. But that's the fun thing about Gabi is, I'm not giving into my better angels. I'm not giving into my worst impulses. I'm kind of just giving into my whiny, bratty side of just like, oh, that's annoying. Like he's just, yeah, you just get to let all that out. So I think the switching has a lot to do with just finding where those stored emotions are and just, opening up the jar.
Okay. I can see how you would lean into the William Dafoe aspect of it. I think he's probably the iconic playing of that character. I mean, there's other animated versions of Green Goblin, but they're all pretty much in the same vein as what we see William Dafoe doing. It's just that William Dafoe was so good at it. He plays such a great bad guy.
Yeah, and I mean, transition from him to the one that I play, like their voices both have texture.
Right.
And it's just the difference between, taking it down here, Spider-Man, to up in here, and it's in my nose, and now I'm in here. Like, it's just, just shifting it,
Sure.
less scary, more just annoying.
Well, yeah, because the age range that you're dealing with, you don't want to frighten the kids too much because then they won't watch the show. And
Right.
Yeah, I get that. Okay. Yeah, I think your answer is pretty close to what Mick said about how he plays Joker for Batwheels. Trying to, I think he used the word, not, I think he's almost said it almost exactly about not being evil, but being a little bit naughty. That he's just he's not a good kid, but he's not a bad kid. He's just, somewhere in the middle and gets into trouble and tries to get other kids in trouble.
Yeah.
So
he's a kid that will probably grow up and do well in stand-up comedy and will tell stories about how he always was in the principal's office.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, JP. One of the other things I noticed about you from good old Wikipedia of Hollywood, that IMDb. Now this comes from the bio, so I feel much, much better about talking about this with you. It said that you do a fair amount of volunteer and nonprofit work, notably with QueerVox. So I was hoping that you would talk to us for a few minutes about what that is,
sure,
and what that program is, what type of work it does, and how it helps the community.
Yeah. So QueerVox is a nonprofit that I started back in the beginning of 2021. And it was born out of conversations I was having with casting directors about simultaneously celebrating the rise of queer representation in video games and animation, but bemoaning the fact that those roles were rarely authentically cast. They were usually played by straight or cisgender people. And the common refrain was just sort of like, well, we just don't know where to find these actors. And I'm like, well, it's not that they don't exist, So
Right.
So QueerVox just started as a class. Like, let's just put it out there to maybe train actors who haven't had the opportunity to specifically train in voiceover and see if maybe that's where the issue is. And that's part of the issue. But as we brought people in and we got to hear everybody's stories of where they were coming from and sort of what the community's needs were, it became partially about training, but really more so about the opportunities to be showcased and seen. Okay. There is such a stigma that even in voiceover, it's not about your face, it's not about your body or the way that you look for the camera, but there is still that preconception about, like, if somebody says that they identify a certain way, that, oh, well, this voice needs to sound like that. Or when we're talking about particular characters, well, this voice needs to sound like that. Like, if I say, oh, we're bringing in somebody to play a soldier in Call of Duty, what's the voice that you have in your head that you think of?
Most times it's going to be a gruff male voice. I'm going out. We got to kill. Yeah.
Whereas anybody who has actually served in the military or even in combat will tell you that people in the military sound like all sorts of different things.
Right.
You don't need to sound like Clint Eastwood to fight a war.
Right.
So we're trying to do a few things. On one hand, we're offering training. On the other hand, and then we also offer showcase opportunities and an online talent directory to get people seen by casting. But then we also have education within the industry to talk about, to sort of encourage people to blow out their expectations of, when you think of a voice, why do you think of this particular gender? Or why do you think of this particular sound associated with it? Like, we've seen a lot, the one thing that we see a lot of is in casting breakdowns is like seeking a non-binary androgynous voice. Well, those aren't the same thing. I identify as genderqueer. I don't think my voice is particularly androgynous. It can be. I can make it do that, but it doesn't. There's plenty of people that identify as non-binary that don't sound the same at all.
Right.
And that's also true of a trans sound or the stereotypical gay voice. Like, yeah, there are men who are gay who have a effeminate lilt to their voice.
Correct.
And then there are also those that aren't. And so the more that we play into stereotypes, the more that we're cutting people out of opportunity, and even more so preventing people not just from booking that, like, look, there's a lot of authentic casting going on right now, which we love. That's great. But that's not necessarily the way that we get somebody to get a long lasting career.
Right.
I mean, I think about actors, Black voice actors from the 90s, like Cree Summer and Phil LaMarr and Kimberly Brooks, incredible actors. But if they were only playing Black characters the whole time, they never would have had a career. They had to play white people along the way because there's just not enough, and they're perfectly believable as it, because, again, there's a stereotype around what a Black person sounds like, especially in commercials.
Sure.
Which is sometimes that matches up, but not always. It's certainly not. No community is a monolith. So, we're working on a bunch of different fronts to make sure that our actors are getting work, but not just getting one job. They are able to build long-lasting careers in voiceover.
I think that's great. Yeah, because I think, at least for the non-acting community, I think if they think of somebody who in movies or television as someone who is a queer character, especially if it's a male, they automatically expect it to have the effeminate sound.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the stereotype that is probably most, because I think that's the one that gets most used and show, like if you see somebody on Saturday Night Live and they're playing somebody who's homosexual, it's automatically to that comedic height. That's where they would think it needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's great that you're able to help people see that there are different, like you said, no community is a monolith. So being able to see that there are different ends of the spectrum for every voice type and every style of life and personality and everything. So I think that's great.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
for sure.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right. So JP, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
And this is I told you before the show, we had a silly question. This is that aforementioned silly question. JP Karliak, what's your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, huh. Oh, wait. Why am I hesitating? Triceratops.
I love it when somebody else loves the Triceratops. That's fantastic.
Is that the correct answer?
So, for me, that's the correct answer. So, I'm a big fan of the Triceratops. When I was a kid, I always loved rhinos, and so that to me was you'll hear it in other interviews. I call the Triceratops the triple rhino. I was as a kid, that's what I called it. So
because I think it's got the most character. Like there's really nothing else that looks like that, and also. Again, I mentioned I am a Power Ranger person. I was a big Blue Ranger person, and he is Triceratops.
Nice. All right. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. So JP, thank you so much for being on the FSF podcast today. Where can our listeners and viewers go to find out more about you and what you've got coming up?
Yeah. I'm mostly on Instagram at JP Karliak. My website is jpkarliak.com. And if you're interested in finding out more about QueerVox, you can visit us on Instagram at QueerVox Academy or our website, queervox.org. And also, the other nonprofit that I work on is called Nerds Vote. And there's an election coming up, and you should vote in it. So visit nerdsvote.com to make sure that you are registered and that you know what's on your ballot and you are ready to vote.
Fantastic. We will make sure that we put those links down in our show notes down below so people can check out everything that you've got coming up. Awesome. And guys, we just want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing you can do to help our show to continue to grow. Get amazing guests like JP here to come on and talk with us, share some great nerdy stories and a few laughs with us, and give you guys some funny moments to be able to listen to. So go check out JP's stuff. Like I said, those show notes, the links will be down there in the notes, and please click the like and subscribe button on this video. It's a big help. Anyway, JP, thank you again for coming on the show, and guys, thank you for tuning into the FSF Popcast. Goodbye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.